Welcome to lesson 11 of our Primavera P6 training. So in this particular lesson, we're going to be looking at baselining. So baselining your project is actually a very interesting feature and a very important one at that, because if you do not baseline your project, you might not be able to do your project analysis. I mean, when we're going to begin to talk about the end value management, the tracking of our project, and some of those other details, all of these will stem from the fact that we have baselined our project. So baselining your project is basically like taking a snapshot of your schedule. In other words, you want to know exactly what you have done at this moment, so that in the course of the project implementation, if anything changes, this your snapshot remains, and then you can now compare whatever changes that may have taken place with the snapshots that you've taken in your project. Let me illustrate. So currently in our schedule, we have tables and we have activities, which is 1, 2, and 3. Activity 1 is A, activity 2 is B, activity 3 is C. And then we have the duration for these activities, which of course we have at the top. So this is the duration for the activity. So activity A, 5 days, activity B, 10 days, activity C, 5 days. And then beyond that, we also have the start and we have the finish date for each of those our activities. So say start for activity A was from 1st, and then finish was on the 5th. And then for activity B, let's say start is on the 6th, and then finish is on the 16th. Then let's say activity C, start is on the 17th, and then let's say finish is on the 22nd. So if you look at the Gantt chart, because in your Gantt chart at the top you have the various dates for the calendar: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 17. So these are the various, days of the month, 14, 15, up until 20, or up until 30. So for the first activity, you notice that the Gantt will appear somewhat like this: 1st to 5th. And then second activity, the Gantt will appear somewhat like this: 6th to 16th, somewhere around here. And then the third is going to appear somewhat like 17th to maybe around 22nd, or around something like this. So this is what we have planned. If in the course of the implementation of the project anything changes, say for example this activity, instead of starting on the 1st, now decides to start on the 4th, for one reason or the other, we start it on the 4th, we don't on the 4th instead of starting it on the 1st. Notice that this Gantt is not going to remain like this anymore. So what will happen is Primavera will shift this Gantt from this 1st, which is what we had initially. So we're going to have a case point where this particular Gantt would have to be amended. So that's why I'm deleting it now. And then to have to move from this 1st to 4th. And also depending on the finish, it would stretch itself to another, depending on the finish. So that's what exactly you're now going to see. You're not going to see that one that initially started from the 1st. So but we need a way of telling Primavera that, even though this activity started on the 4th, however, we plan to start it on the 1st. And then even though this activity is now showing that it's going to finish on the 9th, however, the initial plan was to finish, it's going to finish on the 9th, however, the initial plan was to finish it on the 5th. So that will now help us to begin to see that, there's now a variation, or there's now a variance between what we planned to do and then of course what is actually happening within the project. So that indicator that tells Primavera that, this is what we planned to do initially, other than what is currently going on, is what we refer to as the baseline. So we're going to have a situation where the baseline would still be there, so that we want to illustrate the baseline. So your baseline will appear, it's not very conspicuous. Let me use another color, even though usually baselines appear in yellow. So baselines will now appear at the bottom, and that's typically where the baseline appears, the bottom from 1st to 5th. So this was what was planned initially, and that's exactly what it shows. So this bar you're seeing below is now what we refer to as the baseline. And then in the same vein, we're also going to have a similar thing for each of these other ones. We're also going to have a baseline. So the baseline here shows that this is what the initial plan was. And then also you have a baseline here which shows you what the initial plan was. So that no matter what happens, if now in the course of the project implementation, this red, that's for activity 2 changes, and then instead of starting on the 6th, for example, start on a later date, and then what you're now going to have is the baseline will still remain. So even if it starts on the 10th, as against the 6th like we initially planned, notice that the baseline will still remain the same. So this can as well shift and say it started on the 10th and then exceeded further and all of that. So in the course of your analysis, what you're now going to be on the lookout for would be, okay, from the Gantt, has my bars changed? In other words, are they beginning to shift from the baselines, or are they still aligned with the baselines in the course of the project implementation? So once you see that there is a difference between the baseline bar and then of course the implementation bar, or the actual implementation bar, then you know that, okay, for this activity, you already have a variance, and then you can begin to track where the variance is coming from and then understand exactly what is happening. And so all of these we're going to be showing in Primavera P6, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at next. Okay, so back to our Primavera P6, and remember we're going to be creating the baseline for our project. So to create the baseline, you simply go to project menu, click on project menu, and then first click on maintain baseline. When you click on maintain baseline, you simply click on the add button in the maintain baseline window that pops up, and whatever shows up, you simply click on OK. So once you do that, Primavera creates a baseline for your project. This baseline that we created for our project, we simply select it, and then under the baseline type, we click on the drop down and we select the baseline type. So this is our initial plan. So we simply select the initial planning baseline and we click on close. So we have been able to create a baseline. So that's exactly how to create a baseline. It's that simple. So once we've created a baseline, the next thing we need to do is to assign the baseline. So to assign the baseline, you simply go back to project menu again. This time around, you click on assign baselines, and then the assign baseline window pops up. So under your project baseline, click on the drop down and select the new baseline you've created for the manufacturing facility expansion B1. B1 simply means baseline 1, and then you can now make this the primary baseline, which is what we have done just now, and then you click on OK. So we have created the baseline, and then we have also assigned the baseline, and that's exactly what we have done at this stage. So the question will now be, but in the course of illustration, you showed us that another bar will display below and all of that. You don't need to worry about that, because that's exactly what we are going to do right now. I want to zoom out on this so that it's a little bit here, so we can be seeing all the Gantt within a particular space. Okay, good. So in order for us to now display the baseline in the bar, in the Gantt, as the case may be, we simply right click within the Gantt, then click on bars, and then check primary baseline. You see there, check it, make sure this particular box is checked, and then also check baseline milestone. So also ensure that your baseline milestone is checked, then click on apply and click on OK. So once you do that, if you take a look, you will notice that our baseline bars appear below. You can see some yellow bars under the already existing bars as we have it. So those yellow bars, they represent the baseline for our project which we have just created. So you can see the baselines, and that's exactly what the yellow bars here represent. Okay, so another thing we can also do to display the baseline, this time around we might want to display the baseline on our table, so that it's not just going to be on our Gantt. So to display the baseline on our table, all we simply need to do is we, of course, as usual, we add columns. You always ensure that your activities are sorted according to activity ID. So we can add columns. So I can simply right click, and then I choose on columns. I may not use some of these columns right now any longer, so I can remove them. For example, the subcontractors column, which we added in the last lesson, where we talked about activity code. So I can simply remove this by clicking on this remove from list, and then okay, so I think I can deal with these ones here. So we're going to be adding the baseline start as well as the baseline finish columns. That's what I'm going to be adding. So simply click on available options, then find, then type in BL project start, then click on find next. Sorry, start, not start. Then click on find next. So you're going to see the BL project start. So click on add to list and let the BL project start be just above your start. And then also we have BL project finish. So again, you click on find next, then keep looking for it until you see BL project finish, which is what we have there. Add it and then let it be just directly above your finish column. Okay, so once you've done that, you can click on OK. So you have your BL project start, you have your BL project finish. So if you take a look at what is happening at the moment with regards to the BL project start and the BL project finish, you will notice that the dates are the same for the start. Don't forget, this is a milestone, that's why it doesn't have a finish date, because milestones have 0 duration. So but other than that, if you take a look at other boxes, the BL start and the start are all the same date. And then if you also take a look at your BL finish column and finish column, you also notice that the dates are exactly the same. So what is happening at this moment is, because we have just created these baselines and we've taken a snapshot of our initial plan, there is no variance at the moment because work has not started, and that's exactly why you're seeing that your baseline at this moment synchronizes with with the initial plan that you have, which is exactly what we have illustrated here. Alright, so now that we have created the baselines, it simply means that to a large extent we're done with our planning. Next, we shall go into executing. Of course, remember the 5 project management process groups, which are initiating, which is basically where we start the project; planning, which is what we have been doing from day one; then executing, which is what we're going to start looking at from the next lesson; and then monitoring and controlling, which is where we now begin to interpret the results based on tracking using end value management in our project; and then of course closing, where we essentially bring the project to an end. So in the next lesson, we're going to learn how to update status. In other words, work has started and you're beginning to get reports about how these activities are being done. How do you update them using Primavera P6? And that's what we're going to be learning in the next lesson. I hope this particular lesson has been very informative for you. I want to thank you for listening.